Welcome to the Creative Tribe Podcast. This is a podcast about all of the things that fuel a creative lifestyle. I'm Rita,
And I'm Brian.
and together we are Label Me Other. Label Me Other is our production company, and one of our goals is to create creative problem solvers. If you're a creative and this sounds interesting to you, then consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can look us up by the Creative Tribe. You can also find tons of amazing creative tips on our TikTok page at Label Me Other. Or if you have any questions in the realm of content creation, then feel free to drop us a line at labelmeother@gmail.com. We strive to post episodes and for the most part do every single Tuesday. So we like to start off our podcast with a vent session. This is where we can get anything off of our chest that has us in a negative mood. And today, my vent is about client suggestions.
Hmm.
Um, it's not a big vent, but Brian, when you have these meetings with clients and they you can tell they're trying to show you what they want, like in a video or a project or in whatever, and
Yeah.
they're bringing their best ideas, like their best versions of what they think. And in your mind, you're like, man, I could never use this. I could not never, but I wouldn't use this at all. And this is actually very dated. But you have to be nice and kind and cordial, and you got to be like, okay, yeah, all right, you want this in your video? Okay, I'll put that in there. And then in the back of your mind, like X, you know.
Mhm.
Or do you experience that? Like, do you have those
Uh,
moments?
yeah, I've definitely experienced that. And, at the beginning, I would just be like, okay, well, that's what you want. All right, we'll try to figure out a way to implement it.
Mm-hmm.
But that was younger Brian. Brian now is first I ask questions like, okay, well, you send me those examples. Okay, so why do you like this example? Why do you think that this would be more effective? The most effective way to deliver whatever message that they're trying to deliver. And a lot of times you find out that they don't really know. They just be like, oh, well, I just like the way it looks, there's no true reason.
Oh,
And then that opens the door for you, the creative, to kind of squeeze in there and be like, okay, well, I think this would work. And you already have the reasons why. Okay. Be like, well,
yeah,
I think this will work because of A, B,
yeah,
C, D, you know?
yeah,
And
yeah.
then they're like, okay, I mean, because they really didn't have like a true reasoning for it. It's just they
Mm-hmm.
just like the way something looked.
Gotcha. Because
So
sometimes I try not to take it personal, but sometimes I feel as though they aren't sure of my abilities as a content creator. And
mhm.
so this is just my personal belief. I feel like sometimes they're trying to make sure that I give them what they're asking for. And so in effort to do that, they're trying to show me like how it should look, like to the point where real life example, I had a
Mhm.
script. The script had like in parentheses like during this part maybe we can show a list of all the things I'm naming. During this part, can we do a picture of this? When I say this, I would like a picture of this to show up. And so it's
Mhm.
really kind of like for creatives, it's very micromanaging, right?
Mhm.
Um, but also you can tell it's just like a fear of like, I don't think they're gonna understand what I want in a video. And to be fair, they hadn't seen any of my prior work, so they just didn't know. Um, but I just take it with a grain of salt. Of course, I don't say anything, and I probably took the passive aggressive route and like
Mhm.
I took their suggestions. I asked them to send me all their PNGs, and then because I was really intending to use it if I could. But then and some I did like graphics and logos or whatever, obviously. But then I just did the video how I would do it normally without any of
Yeah.
their suggestions. And I sent it
Yeah.
to them, and then in the message or email, I just said, hey, here's your review link. I decided to use some different graphics that better match the color scheme for the video. But if
Mhm.
you'd like me to use your graphics, let me know. I'd be happy to put them in. And of course, they're like, no, 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 this is great. This is better than what we were thinking.
Mhm.
This is perfect. So, maybe I took the passive aggressive route. I don't know, but it worked.
Well, yeah, it worked. It worked, but I would really suggest that, I mean, for folks to just, whenever you're first talking to the client and you're trying to, nail, trying to, get everything laid out of what the mission is to go ahead and ask those questions. Go ahead and
Yeah.
ask, okay, well, are you really are you really, married to these suggestions that you put in there? You kind of feel the client out, and then that will aid you on how you should respond. I mean, because if they're like, oh well, no, you can do whatever, then great, you can just
Yeah.
go your own path. But if they're like, well, I really like this look, because like if they give you explanations on why they put that in there, then just go ahead and do what they put in there.
Yeah.
Like, don't
Yeah.
even try to go against the grain. Just
Right.
give them what they want, because
Yeah.
ultimately it is the client's project.
For sure. For sure. You definitely
So
have to do what they want. But
yeah.
I'll say I was 100% expecting and prepared to go back and put their graphics in if they
Hmm.
said, hey, we really would prefer that picture of that, whatever. I
Yeah.
was prepared to do that, but I knew they just wanted higher quality looking video and I could
Hmm.
provide that. And so I just provided that and then decided to take the hit if I had to later.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. If you can work it out, try to get them to trust you.
Yeah, work that stuff out on the front end, so you won't have to go back. Everybody's on the same page, and everybody knows, okay, this is the mission. This is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
for sure, for sure. So this brings us to our main topic today, which is about pre-production 101, or maybe before you hit record. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to take a step back and really help those of you who are serious about starting your content creation journey. There are tons of videos out there on content creation, but they all seem to start with equipment or the logistics of how to do the production side of things, with very few focusing on like the actual pre-production side of things. And so I really wanted to take a moment to really help those of you who are like, okay, I want to do this. What do I need to do first? Because I think a lot of people skip this step and they jump straight
Hmm.
into production, and then they lose the zest. They're not sure what they're doing. They've spent a lot of money, and then they're like, oh, like I don't know what I'm doing. So
Right.
if you watch this podcast, it should help you at least kind of get a general idea of what you should do before you hit record on paper.
Hmm.
So for those of you who don't know, and I don't want to go too elementary here, but the pre-production part is the initial phase of a content creation journey. That's when you're going to do your planning, your preparation, your organization before you actually do your production side. And then, of course, production is where you're going to film or record whatever you're doing. And then your post production is where you're doing all the after kind of tweaking. So you're editing, your graphic design, you could be doing your marketing, those type of things. Could sometimes happen, toward the latter part of your project. So back to the first part, the pre-production. I think it's important. And I kind of broke it down into these three questions. First of which being, what are you trying to do? If you can say in like what's one sentence, what are you trying to do? Then the next sentence I would say is, who are you trying to help? So what are you trying to do? Who are you trying to help? And
Hmm.
then the third one is, how are you going to help them? So to kind of give you an example with using our content. So, what are we trying to do? Brian and I are trying to share our creative lifestyles. So that's what we try to do with you guys each and every time we come and put our faces online, our voices, right? Who we're trying to help is content creators. That's our main goal here, is to help people who are interested in content creation. And then how do we plan to help them? We plan to help them by empowering them to create problem solvers. We're trying to help them by empowering them to be problem solvers
Hmm.
and use that to help them skyrocket in their content creation. So if you're putting all that together, we're empowering content creators to be creative problem solvers and skyrocket in content creation. So anytime we sort of get off track, we're not sure where we are, not sure what we're doing, or we're trying to create a piece of content, we can go back to this one sentence and say, does it align with the vision of what we're trying to do, what we're trying to bring online?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Totally agree. Totally agree with those things. What are you trying to do? Who you're trying to help, and then how.
Yeah.
And just like Rita said, it's like, a lot of times, we go back to those, I guess I call them kind of like buckets,
Yeah.
are like buckets of label me other, okay, well, what are you always go back there to realign yourself,
Yeah.
uh,
Sort of
to
our
stay on target. Yeah.
like our core values, if you will, our core
Right.
our
Right.
mission
Yeah.
statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it's
Exactly.
is really crucial because if you don't know who you're trying to help, and why you're doing it, then you already are way, way off. It's one thing to be like, oh, I'm going to make a podcast and I'm going to talk about whatever, but you just need to know that you know what you're trying to do, and it's going
Yeah.
to help you in the long run. And please know it could take a couple weeks to figure this out. And it may not come to you over a day. You may have to spend a little bit of time and meditation and whatever, in private time, quiet time, to get yourself to that point.
Right.
But,
Right. And a really important one to me is knowing your why. Because whenever you don't know your why, like that is how you lose your creative momentum.
mhm.
Like the moment that you're like, okay, why am I doing this? It's like you lose all the steam. At least with
Yeah.
me, it's like whenever I'm like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's like I lose all the creative momentum. Any enthusiasm that I may have about whatever project that I'm working on is gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you need something strong and powerful to
Right.
keep you there
Yeah.
in the times where it gets crazy.
Yeah. So finding
And
your why is important.
yeah, and really quickly, I have a buddy of mine who um he wanted to start a podcast, and he was telling me about this, and he invested some money in some good quality equipment, and
Mhm.
he was telling me about his first trial episode, and he said it didn't quite go the way he wanted. And me being a creative for quite some time, I'm realizing like he skipped this step. He skipped the pre-production step. He went
Mhm.
straight into buying the equipment, getting all the stuff, trying to tweak his levels, trying to make sure it sounded good, trying to make sure. But then when he got to the actual content, the episode wasn't what he wanted it to be, because he skipped figuring out who his audience is, what he's trying to do, why he's trying to do it. He just wanted to jump right in. And so this is actually what prompted me to do this episode, is because, I think a lot of people are doing this. They just jumping
Yeah.
straight in, which sometimes can be good, but also you need this foundation. If you don't want this foundation, yeah, you're not gonna make it very far. Um,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. You need a solid foundation, and you have to do the work. It's like you can't
yeah,
avoid doing the work on the front end. Like you have to take out the time
yeah,
to do the planning and do the work.
yeah, yeah,
And with the equipment things, just start with what you have.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
everybody has a cell phone. Everybody has like a voice memo app that you can that's on that phone for free.
yeah.
Start that way.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You don't have to just jump all the way. It's like you'll
Yeah.
get there. Like that's I'm a real stickler about using what you have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Start with what you have. But I'm not even going to get on that soapbox, but just use what you
Yeah.
have, people.
Which I think I got a segment in here too for that.
Yeah.
Um, that was the first three things. The fourth one is your concept development. So you've got down, what you're trying to do, who you're trying to help, and how you plan to do it. So the next step would be like, okay, you need to flush out your idea. What does it look like on paper? This is all on paper, guys. We're not doing anything with any type of equipment or anything. This is just you and a piece of paper. So what is your concept development looking like? You need to refine that. So if you're doing a podcast, okay, what kind of podcast? What are you talking about? Maybe
Mhm.
what will your segments be? And that brings us to our next section, which is your creating an outline. So in this outline, you're talking about your content topics. Um, that'd be for your episode or your podcast or for your TikTok or whatever. Sort of the structure to that. How are you doing an intro? How is it gonna look? Your objective or goal for that episode. And the real important thing is like content creation does not start with you making something. It's going to start in your mind and on paper, and then it goes to production. So if you have this outline of kind of what you want a few of the episodes to be, it helps to write it down so you can see and start to develop like a flow or a pattern to what you could create.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree to a certain extent because you know what I mean. It's like I
Yeah.
have structure, but I kind of want to leave the door open
Hmm.
for things to just happen. So with your podcast example,
Hmm.
I would have like like an outline, possible segments, but I would go from there to kind of testing that out and recording an episode and
Hmm.
seeing how the conversation flows and seeing how, well, if you're doing it with another person, seeing, okay, well, what are the things that spark the conversation?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that really gets us going. So we need to have more conversations about that.
Yeah.
Or if you're by yourself and you're recording, okay, like, you could just go through a variety of topics and being like, okay, yeah, I really got excited about that. Or I really don't like talking like about that. Or this helps me better if I do have segments in my podcast versus just me just freewheeling and just talking, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's true. Yeah. And I think another important part is like think about what you like when you listen to a podcast or a TikTok
Yes.
or whatever. If you're more geared toward the free flowing podcast where they're just talking about random subjects, then there's an audience for that because obviously you listen to that. But if you're
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, they're rambling again, then you know that that's not for you. So make sure that your podcast doesn't have
Is
that, have
is more
structure to
structured.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just place yourself as the audience member of your own of your own subject matter. Like
Mhm.
don't do things that you know you don't like. But I agree, Brian is very much so like loose outline
Yeah,
and
it's
jump
more like,
in.
yeah, it's more like loose, but like I like to test things. I like to see what happens, so it's not like it may come across other people as if there's no plan or structure. There's a plan or structure. It's just that there's certain things that I just want to kind of play with to see what happens, just to observe. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's another podcast topic. It's like you have to observe your creative process,
Hmm.
and especially when you're working with others, because then you'll learn things not only about yourself but other people that you're working with in that creative space. You got to take out time to just test things, just to see,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
No, no, it's solid. I will say I'm more of a structured person. I kind of need to know what I'm doing and then tweak from
mhm,
there. But I would agree, don't do too much structure. Have one, two, maybe three things at the max. Test and try, and then maybe sub something else, for something else, or add something extra after. But just don't like you don't have to be like everything. I guess you
no, I
know.
mean, because eventually with either method,
Yeah.
structure is going to happen.
Yeah.
It's like,
True.
even with this podcast, it's like it started out a little bit loose. There was structure there, but each
Hmm.
episode that we do, the structure of it is becoming more defined. And what this podcast is and
Yeah.
could be becomes more defined over time. But you
Yeah.
just have to just start.
Right. Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Next on the list, we have budget and schedule. So in a typical pre-production, this is where you're setting like how much you're going to spend on your film or whatever your type of production you're doing and setting a schedule. Here you could do a loose budget. If you have one, your budget may be $0, but at least write down, okay, for this new TikTok page or for whatever, I have X amount of money to put in toward it. If you
Mhm.
if you have any. And then like maybe on paper put a schedule. How much time you need to establish this right here in this pre-production phase. How much time you're gonna dedicate to this? How many videos are you gonna do per week? How many podcast episodes are you gonna do per week? Whatever you're trying to do, how many can you give out of yourself to do? Write it down on a paper. Put it
Mhm.
down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. I'm team no budget. So
Hmm.
I try to start with, okay, like I said, what do I have already? But
Yeah.
no, but the scheduling is really important because you need to know, like, okay, how much bandwidth do you really have to put towards this, in this case, podcast?
Right.
Like realistically, like if you
Yes.
know that doing 2 or 3 a week is like, is stretching you, then you need to scale back. You need to do whatever, you need to figure out a schedule that you can repeat
Right.
continuously.
Yeah. Take it from an hour long podcast to a 30-minute or from a 30 to a 10-minute. Like
Yeah.
make it fit your schedule. I mean, that's the whole point of this. It can
Hmm.
fit in your life. You just got to make it fit or
Right.
figure out where
Right.
it can fit.
Right.
And then from there we go into location. Obviously, on a typical film type set, you're figuring out where your scenes are going to be. But in something like this, something where you're probably just starting out, think about like just in the bare minimum. Where are you going to be filming this? Where are you filming this podcast? Do you have good acoustics in there? Do you have space in there? Are you going to have children in the background that are going to disrupt you? Is it going to be on your kitchen table? Is it going to be like, where is it going to be? Like, think about that. Go ahead and dedicate time to knowing where this can fit into your life. Even if you need to go outside and get some free lighting, but that needs to be written down. just
Yeah.
just spend time taking a few minutes to say, okay, where can I film this or record this?
Hmm. Hmm. I
And
agree. I agree.
And the next step is your production design and art direction. This is where you're gonna have like props, visual effects, logo, color scheme, whatever you may need to bring kind of your branding into effect. I'm not saying you have to spend like a ton of time on doing this, but if you're shooting a podcast or like in this case, a video podcast,
Mhm.
at least have a little thought of like, okay, what's in my background? Am I gonna have a space where I have a like something decent, presentable, maybe even in my background? So not only where you're gonna shoot it, but what does that look like and how does that look on camera? How does that sound, for your audio,
Mhm.
depending on what you're doing. So
Yeah, I mean,
make
definitely like, just those things like, how do you want it presented?
mm-hmm.
You have to put some thought, like Rita said, backgrounds, logos. I mean, music. Do you want music in your podcast? I'm using this example. If do you want music at the beginning or at the end? Do you want no music? I mean, do
Yeah.
you want to deal with copy? Just those are things that you need to consider. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is before you even shoot anything. So you can go find it. Go find your intro music beat you like or. But yeah, this is a good time to do it. Next we have preparing for post-production. I mean, obviously we know that there's, post-production involved, but sometimes you don't think about it. Like if you don't have editing skills, that's a skill set you're gonna now have to learn.
Mhm.
If you're not great with graphic design or whatever you may need for that, for your social media pages, that's something else that you may have to consider.
Mhm.
So just having in your mind at the beginning, how is this going to get edited? How am I going to bring all these elements together?
Right, right. Like, what's my turnaround time? Like, like you said, if you know that you're not a good editor, you're not good at editing video or editing sound. Okay, well, how long can you turn this around? So
Yeah,
you really need to consider that.
because it
Yeah.
does add time to your overall project. Not only you shooting, now you got to have time to edit it. So it's just something you need to figure out in the front end. And the final thing I have is just finalizing your delivery. Like where is this gonna live once you have completed it? Where is it gonna be? And is there any fees or anything associated where it needs to live? So
Right.
yeah,
Right. Yep.
thinking about those things. So I know that that's a lot, but I don't think there are a lot of videos covering like setting up your project, setting up content creation, and the things you need to think about to make your life
Mhm.
easier down the road.
Yeah.
Um, so those are a few of them. So I'll run them back really quick. So you've got number one is what are you trying to do? Number two, who are you trying to help? Number three, how are you going to help them? Create a sentence with all those three combined, so you kind of have that as your mission statement. Number four, your concept development. Then it goes into number five, create an outline for your project with some
Mhm.
examples of potential episodes that you could do. Number six, your budget and your schedule of when you can get this done and how much it may potentially cost you. And like Brian said, don't break the bank. Use what you have in all regards, and then build from there. Number seven, your location, where you're actually going to shoot this or do it from. Number eight, your production design and art direction. So all of your props, what does your set look like behind you? Checking for those things. Number nine, preparing for your post production, making sure you have everything in order, editors, or if you're going to edit, practicing those things before you get going. And the final thing is just finalizing your delivery. Where are you going to post it? Where is it going to live? How are
Mhm.
people going to find it? You could do arguably an extra step of marketing. How are you going to promote it? But I think the most important part right now is just these 10 steps,
Right.
getting down the actual meat and potatoes.
Hmm. Yep. Those are great 10 steps right
Yeah.
there.
All right, this brings us to our Mastering Your Own Destiny update. A while back, I decided to take control of my own destiny by embodying who I wanted to become. So every day, I actively channel being a successful creative director, and I bring that energy with me to my work until it becomes my new reality. So this week, my update for this is maybe I can't help everybody, Brian.
Mm.
And I know we talked a little bit about this off camera, but this is something I'm learning. My mission in doing this creative thing is like bringing all my teammates up with me, helping everybody feel empowered and like they have a part to play and that we could do this together. But I'm realizing like, man, sometimes maybe I just can't help everybody. And it's maybe taking too much of my energy, pulling me away from where I need to be to do that. So now it's like finding ways of like, oh, how to either get around this completely, abandon the mission of trying to bring everybody up, or like try to find a way to stay on my mission and just lead by example and hope that that helps other people get energized into doing their own thing,
Yeah.
but knowing that I have no control in like helping them morph into a better version of themselves or like a more evolved version, which seems so crazy to me. Like saying it out loud makes like why would I even try that?
Yeah. I
You
mean, because
can't do that.
you can't.
Yeah.
It's like you can only thing that you could do is create a space for someone I mean, like, okay, so they either are going to be passionate about the work or they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, and you have to realize that some people may not be as passionate about whatever you're working on as you. Some
Hmm.
people are just in these positions just to get a paycheck.
Yeah.
And it's something that they may be good at or they learn to be good at, and they're just going through the motions and they're fine with that.
Hmm.
But and so you have to realize that like you said, like you can't help everybody. But I think as a creative and you're working in a creative space, I feel like that um you should always kind of leave the door open for if they happen to become passionate about it or if they happen to want to step up in certain ways, to leave the door open and not completely, you know, shut them out. Because it'll be really easy to be like, okay, well, I'm trying to motivate you guys and nobody's really, jumping on board and you guys aren't being vocal about anything. And you really just want to be like, you know what, I'm just going to take off without you. But I've learned that sometimes you really need to leave the door open because sometimes people don't step up in that moment, but they'll step up or want to step up in other moments.
Yeah.
And that space needs to be there for them to do that.
Yeah. And that's a great way of saying it. And I think, yeah. Yeah. I guess I'm sorry. My mind is like, okay,
No,
I'm formulating a question while also thinking, how do I do that? But yes, I think it, and I think it goes back to like me focusing in on like what I'm trying to do and just work on that momentum. And then, like you said, leaving the door open, I guess for me is more so like not asking anybody of anything of anybody and maybe just waiting for them to come and say, I want to be a part of this or I want to help in this.
mm,
And if they do, great. And if they don't, like, don't force it. I think what I've been trying to do is like force their participation, like
yes.
force, I don't want to say force, but in a way, force them to see, like, okay, if you say you want this, here's how I can see that you can help me in this. And those
But
are, yeah, yeah.
but I will say, like, you're how they can help you in this, but it's like, are you are you framing that in something that they're good at? Because
Well, I'm
sometimes,
trying.
like, but sometimes it's like I like to kind of plan ahead, like kind of plan ahead, kind of look ahead a couple of steps. So if
Mhm.
I was in that situation, I say for instance, like if there's a team member, I'm like, hey, I really need you. Can you take a stab at writing the script for whatever project that we're working on?
Mhm.
And I know that in the past they've seemed to be okay with providing or helping with the script.
Mhm.
Now, I would have in the back of my mind, okay, well, if they kind of flick out on this by
Mhm.
not being passionate or not showing initiative or wanting to do it, even though I'm kind of setting them up to succeed, but if they drop the ball, I kind of have in my mind, okay, well, what's plan B in case? And so that's what I mean by like leaving the door open, but you have to kind of set it up to where like you still have to come to them to set your team up for success. So like if you know that well whoever is good at this certain thing, but they may be kind of, just really dropping the ball or not really being, into the project, still open the door,
Yeah.
but also kind of know, well, if they drop the ball, what am I going to do? I already have that planned out.
Right. But what I'm saying is like not even offer that though anymore. Like, because I feel like they have. there have been words of like, I guess them wanting to be maybe seen or viewed in a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
be included, to feel like team camaraderie. My efforts in doing that is like, if we're only getting video work, well, let me show you what parts of video work you could help with, right? So that you can be in part of this praise or whatever failure too, But I think now I'm just like, I just have to focus on me. It like me, I know I can count on Brian, and then it's just like going from there. But yeah, it's a lot. And yeah, next episode I'll have a little bit more to say about this because I
Yeah.
think it's part of my vent for the next episode. But yeah, Brian, ultimately, you're right. I cannot control them. Obviously, my effort in trying to help them is just like, hey, if you want this, here's how I can see you can help me. Otherwise, I could do it on my own. Like, I could do
Yeah.
it on my own. The only person I know who can help me without any help is you. So it's like,
I mean, but to your point, is like at least you're keeping the door open,
I'm
by
trying.
saying like this is how you can contribute. The door
Mm-hmm.
is open here for you to contribute. You
Yeah.
know, I just would kind of like to sweeten the deal and leave that contribution to something that, that I kind of know that they're kind of good at.
Yeah. I can see that. I can see
But yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Man, we're out of time for this episode, y'all. It's getting juicy. I probably could go on a little bit more, but come back next week for some more. Thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate you being here. It is our hope that these episodes provide a window into the daily mindsets, joy, and challenges that creative people face every single day. It is a creative lifestyle, and you aren't alone in it. If you're looking for more creative talk, just like this one, search for Label Me Other on TikTok, and you'll find tons of additional videos. So until next time, get out there and go create.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys.
Bye, guys.